Love is usually sold to us like fireworks, bright, loud, over in a flash. We're taught to believe that if it doesn't overwhelm us, it isn't real. But what if the love that truly changes you doesn't arrive with noise at all? What if it walks in quietly, sits beside you, and stays? This is not a story about grand gestures or dramatic promises. It's about one woman who didn't try to be unforgettable, yet became impossible to forget. She didn't teach love how to burn hotter. She taught it how to last longer. She showed that love doesn't have to hurt to be deep, and it doesn't have to shout to be strong. Once you experience that kind of love, you don't chase chaos anymore. You look for peace. And once you find it, love never feels the same again. Love as presence, not possession, asks us to unlearn one of the earliest myths we are taught about affection, that loving someone means holding them tightly enough that they cannot drift away. Possession disguises itself as devotion. It tells us that if we care deeply, we must monitor, control, define, and sometimes limit the other person. It confuses closeness with ownership and commitment with entitlement. Presence, on the other hand, is quieter and far more demanding. It requires restraint, trust, and a willingness to stand beside someone without trying to manage who they are becoming. Presence means being there without hovering. It is the difference between watching someone walk their path and trying to steer them down it. When love becomes possession, the beloved turns into something to be protected from change, as if growth itself were a threat. But love as presence understands that change is inevitable and does not treat it as abandonment. It stays close without shrinking the other person's world. It allows freedom not because freedom is easy, but because it is respectful. This kind of love does not ask, "Are you still mine?" It asks, "Are you okay?" It does not measure loyalty by proximity or obedience, but by honesty. Presence is attentive without being invasive. It notices shifts in tone, pauses in conversation, moments of exhaustion, and offers space rather than interrogation. Where possession demands reassurance, presence offers calm. Where possession reacts, presence responds. At its core, presence recognizes that love is not a transaction. You are not owed access to someone's thoughts, time, or emotions simply because you care about them. Presence accepts that sometimes the most loving act is to step back while remaining emotionally available. This does not mean detachment or indifference. It means choosing trust over fear. Possession grows from anxiety, the fear of loss, replacement, or insignificance. Presence grows from acceptance, the understanding that love cannot be forced into permanence, only invited into continuity. When love is presence, it becomes a place rather than a grip, a place someone can return to without fear of judgment or control. It does not collapse when distance appears, nor does it panic when silence stretches longer than expected. It understands that people have inner lives that do not require constant explanation. Presence listens without demanding performance. It allows the other person to be unfinished, uncertain, and contradictory. This form of love also reshapes responsibility. Possession assumes responsibility for another person's happiness, then resents them for the weight of it. Presence recognizes that each person carries their own emotional work. It supports without rescuing. It offers help without erasing autonomy. It stands close enough to help, but far enough to let the other person stand on their own. Presence asks for courage because it removes the illusion of control. You cannot guarantee outcomes when you stop clinging. You cannot prevent loss by tightening your hold. What you can do is show up consistently, speak honestly, and remain open even when certainty disappears. This is why presence feels so rare. It requires strength that does not announce itself. It requires patience that is not rewarded immediately. In love as presence, commitment is not proven by surveillance or sacrifice alone, but by steadiness, by choosing to stay emotionally available, even when it would be easier to withdraw or dominate, by allowing someone to be fully themselves, even when that self is inconvenient or unfamiliar. Presence does not fear independence, it respects it. It understands that love thrives not when two people merge into one, but when two whole people choose to walk alongside each other. This kind of love changes how connection feels in the body. It replaces tension with ease. It removes the constant need to perform, reassure, or compete. It allows silence to exist without interpreting it as danger. It makes love feel less like something to defend and more like something to inhabit. It shifts the question from "how do I keep you?" to "how do I stay true while standing with you?" The quiet strength of one woman is rarely announced. It doesn't arrive with declarations or demand recognition. It exists in the way she holds herself steady when circumstances try to pull her apart, in the way she chooses patience over reaction, and in how she remains grounded even when no one is watching. Her influence is not immediate or explosive, but cumulative. Over time, it changes the emotional climate around her, softening harshness and bringing clarity where there was once noise. This kind of strength is rooted in self-awareness. She knows who she is without needing constant validation, which allows her to move through the world with a calm certainty. She does not rush to fill silence or prove her worth. Instead, she allows space for herself and for others. That space becomes an invitation rather than a void, making people feel seen without being scrutinized. Her presence alone creates a sense of safety, not because she promises protection, but because she embodies consistency. She does not dominate conversations or impose opinions, yet her words carry weight. When she speaks, it is deliberate, shaped by reflection rather than impulse. This restraint is often mistaken for softness, but it is the result of discipline. She understands the power of timing and the impact of choosing when not to respond. In moments of conflict, she resists the urge to escalate. She listens, absorbs, and responds with intention, which often diffuses tension more effectively than force ever could. Her strength also shows in how she navigates vulnerability. She does not use openness as a performance or a tool for control. When she shares herself, it is honest and unguarded, but not reckless. She knows her limits and respects them. This balance teaches others that vulnerability does not require self-erasure. By being fully herself without apology, she gives silent permission for others to do the same. What makes her truly transformative is that she does not try to change people directly. She changes the environment instead. Through her steadiness, others feel less pressured to pretend, compete, or defend themselves. They begin to slow down, to reflect, to soften. Her influence spreads not through instruction but through example. People find themselves behaving differently around her, more thoughtfully, more truthfully, without fully realizing why. She carries her struggles quietly as well, not because she is unaffected, but because she understands the difference between sharing pain and projecting it. She takes responsibility for her inner world, working through it without making it someone else's burden. This self-containment is not isolation, it is maturity. It allows her to show up for others without losing herself in the process. Over time, this quiet strength leaves a lasting mark. Long after conversations end and moments pass, what remains is the feeling she created of being understood without being analyzed, supported without being controlled, and valued without being claimed. That is how one woman changes everything, not by force, not by volume, but by the steady, unwavering way she chooses to be. Redefining vulnerability means seeing openness not as weakness, but as courage, and understanding that showing one's true self can transform relationships in ways that nothing else can. Vulnerability is often misunderstood. Society teaches us to hide uncertainty, to mask our fears, and to perform confidence as if life depended on it. Yet the woman who changes how love feels recognizes that strength and vulnerability are not opposites, they are inseparable. She demonstrates that to expose one's heart, to admit doubt or fear, is not to invite harm, but to create space for connection. By daring to be seen fully, she shows that intimacy does not require perfection, and love does not demand armor. Her vulnerability is deliberate, not careless. She chooses when and how to reveal her inner life, balancing honesty with discernment. This careful exposure does not seek approval or pity, it simply communicates truth. She might share a worry, confess a mistake, or reveal a fear, but always with the understanding that these moments are bridges, not burdens. In doing so, she models a way of loving that does not manipulate or control. She demonstrates that admitting imperfection fosters trust and invites authenticity from others. This redefinition of vulnerability transforms the dynamics of relationships around her. People who have been trained to hide their own fragility feel safer showing up as themselves. Walls that were once necessary to protect ego or avoid judgment begin to lower naturally. When someone witnesses the courage of vulnerability, it becomes contagious. They realize that they too can speak their truth, admit uncertainty, or ask for support without fear of rejection. She shifts the focus from proving worth to being present, making love less about performance and more about understanding. Redefining vulnerability also means reframing failure and fear. When she stumbles or experiences disappointment, she does not retreat into shame or defensiveness. She acknowledges what happened, reflects on it, and continues to move forward. This teaches that vulnerability includes resilience. that showing emotion does not equate to helplessness, but rather demonstrates awareness and strength of character. She embodies a kind of openness that allows for mistakes, learning, and growth, creating an environment where love can flourish without constant judgment. Her approach to vulnerability reshapes expectations. Love is no longer a test of endurance or a measure of who can appear strongest. It becomes a shared journey, where admitting doubts, fears, and desires is a form of courage that deepens connection. By modeling this behavior, she changes the emotional vocabulary of those around her, proving that the heart can be soft without being weak, open without being exploited, and real without being fragile. Through her example, vulnerability becomes not a risk, but a revolutionary act that transforms how love feels. Love that heals time is a rare and profound force. Most of the love we encounter is measured in moments, bright flashes of connection or bursts of emotion. But the kind of love she embodies has the power to reach backward and forward, reshaping the way past and present feel. It does not erase mistakes, regrets, or sorrow, but it reframes them, allowing wounds that once felt permanent to sow. F10. This love teaches patience with oneself and others, showing that the scars of yesterday do not have to define today. It is not a temporary balm, but a steady presence that gradually transforms pain into understanding and resentment into empathy. Her love moves slowly, deliberately, offering reassurance where doubt once lingered. It doesn't demand repayment or recognition. It simply exists, consistent and patient. By remaining steadfast, she provides a mirror in which past experiences are reflected differently, not as failures or betrayals, but as steps along a journey that ultimately brought one to her. In this way, her love allows time to be reconciled. Memories that were sharp or hollowed by loss begin to feel less heavy, because they are now held within a space of care and acceptance. This healing is not passive. It requires emotional intelligence and attentiveness. She listens to the stories of the past without judgment or interruption, validating emotions rather than dismissing them. By witnessing pain with compassion, she transforms it. The listener begins to reinterpret experiences that once caused shame, regret, or fear. Her love reframes those moments, creating new meaning and allowing growth that once seemed impossible. In essence, she becomes a living testament to the idea that love can rewrite the emotional landscape of one's life without altering history. Her presence also encourages self-forgiveness. People who carry guilt or blame often feel trapped in cycles of regret. By offering acceptance without condescension, she models the possibility of letting go, of embracing imperfection. Her love does not excuse mistakes, but it shows that mistakes do not have to define identity. In this way, time itself becomes a friend rather than an enemy, each experience integrated into the story of a life rather than a burden to be carried alone. Through this process, love that heals time cultivates resilience. It reassures the heart that pain is temporary and that connection can endure. It reshapes relationships with oneself and others, allowing for renewed trust, renewed hope, and a sense that life's moments, both joyful and painful, can coexist without consuming the spirit. By embodying this love, she demonstrates that true connection is not constrained by chronology. It is expansive, transformative, and profoundly liberating. Everyday kindness is revolution, is the subtle force that quietly transforms lives, often without anyone noticing at first. It is easy to assume that love must be expressed in grand gestures, dramatic declarations, or memorable events. Yet the woman who changes how love feels understands that the most profound transformations often come from small, consistent acts of care. She does not wait for moments of crisis to show compassion. She makes attention, thoughtfulness, and consideration part of the fabric of her daily life. A smile when someone feels unseen, a thoughtful message without expectation of reply, a simple gesture of help when no one else offers. These acts accumulate over time, quietly reshaping what it feels like to be loved. Her kindness is deliberate, not performative. She does not offer it for applause or recognition. Each act, no matter how minor it seems, is imbued with awareness and intention. She notices the overlooked, the forgotten, the subtle needs of others, and responds not because she must, but because she chooses to. In doing so, she redefines what it means to care. Love is no longer a rare climactic event. It becomes a continuous, living presence, experienced in ordinary, everyday moments. This approach is revolutionary precisely because it challenges the conventional assumptions about love. Society often equates impact with spectacle, believing that only grand gestures matter. Yet she demonstrates that Consistency and attentiveness create deeper, more lasting change. A kind word spoken at the right moment can heal insecurities, a shared laugh can dissolve tension, and an unspoken understanding can create safety. These small, everyday actions compound, creating a profound sense of belonging and trust that far outweighs fleeting displays of intensity. Her consistency also models behavior for others. When people witness kindness carried out without expectation, they are inspired to replicate it. It spreads quietly, like ripples in water, until the environment itself feels softer and more humane. Through this, her influence extends beyond individual relationships. Communities, workplaces, families, anywhere she moves begin to feel the effect of her approach. It reshapes not only emotional bonds but the emotional norms themselves, teaching that care is a habit, not a rare event. What makes this revolutionary is its sustainability. Grand gestures can impress, but fade, small, repeated acts endure. Her everyday kindness does not demand perfection or heroism, but it does require attention, empathy, and patience. It teaches that love is not about dramatic highs, but about reliability, presence, and the courage to notice and respond to the needs of others. Through her example, people begin to understand that love is not measured by magnitude, but by constancy. Love as a choice, repeated daily, is a quiet yet profound discipline that reshapes how connection feels. It challenges the misconception that love is only an overwhelming emotion that strikes suddenly and without effort. The woman who changes how love feels understands that true love is not a one-time declaration, but an ongoing commitment to show up again and again, even when it is inconvenient, tiring, or imperfect. Each day offers the opportunity to choose patience over irritation, presence over distraction, and understanding over judgment. By embracing love as an active choice, she demonstrates that relationships are not sustained by chance or chemistry alone. They are cultivated through deliberate action. This daily choice is rooted in awareness. She does not assume that love will automatically flourish, nor does she rely on the other person to maintain it. She acknowledges that both people are fallible and that challenges are inevitable. Choosing love means responding with care when frustration arises, listening deeply when emotions run high, and forgiving, not as a one-time event, but as a continuous practice. It transforms the ordinary into the extraordinary because it requires mindfulness, intention, and consistency. Choosing love daily also means embracing vulnerability repeatedly. Each day presents moments where fear, insecurity, or past hurts could prevent connection. By consciously deciding to act with compassion and openness despite these obstacles, she reframes love as an ongoing act of courage rather than a fleeting emotion. She does not wait for ideal conditions or perfect circumstances. She demonstrates that love grows strongest when it is exercised through commitment and resilience. This approach also redefines accountability in relationships. When love is a choice, it becomes evident that both parties are responsible for nurturing it. It is not a passive experience in which one person gives and the other receives. It is a shared practice that demands attention, reflection, and intentionality. Each day becomes an opportunity to reinforce trust, deepen intimacy, and strengthen the bonds that sustain the relationship. Small, repeated choices, checking in, offering support, expressing appreciation, listening without judgment, accumulate over time into a foundation that is steady and enduring. Through this repeated practice, love transforms from a fleeting feeling into a living force that shapes daily life. It is no longer dependent on passion, circumstance, or perfection. Instead, it becomes an intentional presence, a constant thread weaving through ordinary moments, turning them into expressions of care and commitment. By choosing love daily, she demonstrates that true connection is less about grand declarations and more about persistence, attention, and conscious effort, proving that love's deepest power lies in the decisions we make every single day. When we step back and look at the way one woman can change how love feels, it becomes clear that her impact is not measured in dramatic gestures or fleeting moments. She transforms love by being fully present without possession, by showing quiet strength that steadies and inspires, by redefining vulnerability as courage, by offering love that heals time, by practicing everyday kindness, and by choosing love intentionally, day after day. Her influence does not shout. It seeps into the heart, reshaping how we experience connection, trust, and care. She teaches that love is not something to be earned, controlled, or measured, but something to be lived and nurtured in the ordinary, imperfect moments of life. In her presence, love becomes safer, deeper, and more enduring, leaving a mark not just on individuals, but on the way the world itself begins to feel